For all your medication and narcotic tracking needs, check out the LogRX app, created by career fire and EMS professionals. That's LOGRX.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex 7.
In the world of firefighting and public safety, reliability is key. That's why for over 2 decades, first responders nationwide have trusted TheFireStore as their go-to source for essential equipment, apparel, and accessories. Visit TheFireStore.com online or in-store today.
Alrighty, well, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on wherever or whenever you're listening. I will always start with gratitude and thanks everybody for listening and tuning into the Perspectives on Leadership podcast brought to you by Fire Engineering. My name is Steve Shaw. I'm proud to be the Deputy Fire Chief for the Town of Jupiter Fire Rescue Department after just retiring from Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue. I'm honored also to be part of the Fire Engineering family as an author, presenter at FDIC, and a host for this podcast. I always say the same thing, but everybody has a choice of which podcast they can listen to, and there's a ton out there. So the fact that you're choosing to listen to this one, we're honored, and thank you for that. I always also mention this, that Chief Halton, before he passed, mentioned to me that FDIC was a tactics conference, and that resonated with me. And he mentioned that no matter what we did, no matter what we taught or presented on or spoke on, we have to be focused on the listener or the person in the audience and the way they are going to tactically deploy what we talk about or present on. So in his honor, I will always continue to focus on the tactics as well as the concepts. For me, perspective is my passion. In my personal journey as a student of leadership, I continue and I'm always fascinated by how our perspectives affect our ability to lead. This goal for this podcast is always the same as it was since day one, to take a concept or a trait that we associate with leadership and just take a dive down that rabbit hole. There are so many leaders within and without our fire service that have so much to offer us. And I just want to take that time to kind of pick their brains and find ways to take what they're saying and what they have to offer and make it immediately deployable to as many listeners as possible. So thank you to David Rose, thank you to Diane Rothschild, the Clarion team, and especially my agency at JFRD and my boss, Chief Donato, for allowing me to continue this platform and pass it on to my brothers and sisters in the fire service. So I mentioned it previously, but I recently retired from Fort Lauderdale Fire Rescue to take a position with a new organization. And when you retire, you tend to reflect on your career. So for me, it had me thinking about experiences, challenges, the calls, the training, the good days, the bad days, et cetera. And it has you thinking about what worked, what didn't work, what are you going to do going forward? And I specifically reflect on relationships. So this is one of the beautiful things about the conferences and seminars and training classes we go to, that there's just so many opportunities to build new relationships, enhance existing ones. And it reminds us that it's so much more about just the content. I mean, the content we go to for these conferences and these classes is wonderful, but there's so much more, especially in terms of relationships. So one of those relationships that I've recently made is with Matt Caward, who recently retired from Bernalillo, California, or a county fire and rescue department in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we had this great conversation while we were at the National Fire Academy. And it was about leadership and the fire service challenges. And we just spent a lot of time talking about those things. He has an interesting program that he created that addresses so many of these challenges and areas of focus that we find ourselves all looking at these days. They're all on our collective radars. And I thought this would be a wonderful talk for today's podcast. So 3 things that came to my mind as I was preparing for this, and I'll introduce Matt in a second, were these. First of all, relationships. And I can't stress this enough. I can't stress enough the importance of developing and curating and focusing on solid relationships. This includes also remembering not to forget about those relationships outside the job. In other words, the ones you go home to after you get off of your shift. The second thing I was thinking of is accountability. And that's going to be one of the significant things we talk about today. I'm looking forward to dive into Matt with this. A lot about what we're going to be speaking on today involves about being accountable and then holding others accountable. Now, it's one thing to say that word, but what does that look like in reality? And I'm excited to discuss that today. The third thing is resilience. A lot of what we spoke on prior to getting on today involved that building of resilience to counter the stresses that come along with this job. Being a leader is often not easy, and finding that balance with all that it entails is essential to thriving as a leader. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with Matt as well. So I'm going to introduce Matt here. Matt Caward has an extensive experience building successful organizational cultures in the fire service, professional sports, full-time ministry, and business. He's a certified smoke diver, a published author, 20-year veteran of the fire service. He founded the 2 times world champion professional arena football franchise, the Duke City Gladiators, a successful business owner and an ordained pastor for more than 20 years. Matt is the certified fire officer in New Mexico and a current CFO from the CPSE. He's a graduate from the NFA's Managing Officer Program and currently as an EFO candidate. He's also a graduate of the 22nd Fire Service Chief Executive Officer Program at TEEX and Texas A&M University. He serves in the IAFC's Company Officer Section Board. He's a doctoral student in education, has an MBA in theology, and a bunch of other things. Where I met Matt was at the National Fire Academy, where he's an instructor, and he just recently retired from his position in Bernalillo County Fire and Rescue Department in Albuquerque after 20 years. He's also the founder and CEO of Red, Green, Blue Firehouse Leadership and a U.S. Army veteran. So Matt, I know there's a big introduction, but thank you for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to talking about what you're doing out there, your program, and things like accountability and whatnot. So thank you for having me. I'm
honored to be with you, Steve. I appreciate that introduction and the intro to the show. I'm honored to be on here with you. Obviously, you do this very well. You're a natural at it, so I always love watching your podcast. You do a great job with it. So I'm not surprised the legend picked you to take on this work for him, Bobby Halton. It's interesting, Chief Halton served here at Albuquerque Fire Department, just right up the road. So a department that I work with a lot, or I used to get to work with a lot for the 20 years that I was there. So, he's right here from this hometown, and I've been blessed to be a part of the legacy that he left here and what you're doing now on the show. So thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here with you.
Yeah, man, I'm glad we started with him. I'm so glad to have had multiple just deep conversations with him. There's so many things that I've incorporated into the way I do things based on those conversations. So good place to start. So we met at the National Fire Academy, and I think I was in the start of my EFO program. You were at the Managing Fire Officer program. So in terms of the National Fire Academy, before we get into the content and whatnot, how was your experience there?
I've had an amazing experience. Boy, if you haven't had a chance to go to the National Fire Academy, I hope if you take anything away from this conversation, that you would start going to the National Fire Academy. You take it. I heard someone explain it implicitly, like they explained it perfectly. When you go to the National Fire Academy, you'll come back a born again firefighter. And boy, is that not the truth. Anybody that's been to the National Fire Academy, they understand that there's 2 types of people that go there: people that want to learn, that are eager to learn, that love the fire service and want to learn more about it, and people who love to give back after serving so long in the fire service. And those are the types of teachers that the National Fire Academy attracts. I've been blessed to be a part of that cadre, and so I love going there, and I get to go there often because of being an instructor there. Allows me to visit more often than just taking classes. But we did get to meet at the National Fire Academy. I think I was taking the NICO class, and one of the students in the class with me, actually at my table, was Stephen Carter, who is another rock star of the fire service, and I was blessed to meet him. But Stephen was gracious enough to introduce me with you, and then that started a new friendship that I'm very proud of and very thankful for. So.
Yeah, I always want to drop a little nugget for the National Fire Academy because I only went the first time in the last couple of years, and it was for the EFO program. And I will tell you, the biggest thing I walked away from after my first few days there was, why have I never been here? Why am I in the fire service for around 25 years, and this is my first time going? It's kind of the similar thing with FDIC. I only went to FDIC, I think, maybe 10 or 11 years ago. And when I got there, I'm like, what the hell? Why have I not been here before? So, if like you said, we're dropping nuggets here in terms of people out there that maybe have not had the experience of going to big conferences like FDIC or things like National Fire Academy, you really need to look into going to those places.
Yeah, and they're great conferences that bring in some of the best speakers in the country. There's a lot of talent in the fire service, especially when it comes to leadership and what we're building and doing and building cultures. And those people are attracted to places like FDIC, Fire Rescue International. The National Fire Academy has a number of those cadre there. So, boy, if you're not going to those places, you're not going to those conferences, you are truly robbing yourself from meeting some of the best in the business and the brightest out there. And what you can take away from that is going to change your life. You're going to come away a born again firefighter and believe in what we're doing. And there's a lot of great things going on in the fire service.
That's the truth. So I had the privilege of watching you do your presentation at First Air, First Care last year, actually earlier this year in Hollywood, Florida. And you were doing your red, green, blue leadership presentation. So as a kind of a lead up to that, let's kind of just walk us through your journey as to where you came from in the fire service and what led up to what you're doing today. Because the presentation you gave, I think, was powerful on multiple levels. And I want you to explain it before we dive into the content, but it had me thinking a lot about accountability, about leadership, about intentionally being there for your people, a lot of sports references. So walk me through, and take your time with this, but walk me through how this started, where it led up to, and all that jazz.
It's an interesting story. I never thought about being a fireman before when I was younger. Obviously you see the fire trucks running and there's people working in that industry, but it wasn't something that was ever on my radar. I never thought I'd ever pursue a career in the fire service. After I got out of the military, a good friend of mine who I grew up with in Chino Valley, Arizona, which is right near Prescott, Arizona, had contacted me. His name is Jarrett Tarver, dear friend of mine. I went to high school with him, got to play football with him, went to high school with the youngest Tarver brother. I know a lot of people on this podcast are going to recognize the name Tarver because a big family, almost every single one of them, except for, I think, Benji, is in the fire service, have had great careers in the fire service. You probably know their brother, Brett, who was killed in a fire, the grocery store fire in Phoenix, which birthed all of the blue card system. That incident is what started the blue card system, which I'm a big fan of. We use it in our department here. I'm an advocate for it because I'm a product of that system. Wonderful system. But through that relationship with Jarrett, he contacted me, said, "Hey, Matt, we're doing a testing process. You got to come out and test for the fire service. You'd love it. It'd be right up your alley." And I didn't think much of it, but I said, "Okay, let's go try it out." And boy, did I find my new passion in life. And I went and did the testing process. They were hiring 10 of us, 10 positions, and, was able to hit it out of the park. And I fell in love with the fire service, and I haven't looked back since. That was back in 2001, just before 9/11, actually, just before Brett's death in Phoenix. And I got into the fire service. Fast forward a couple of years, I served there for a few years, got an opportunity to come out to Albuquerque, New Mexico for a couple of job offers, job offer here in Bernalillo County Fire Department, which is the county that encompasses Albuquerque. And they were testing for one position, hiring one position. I also got contacted by a church when I was in Arizona that they were looking for a full-time pastor to serve out here. And so we had set up the testing process for both of those jobs. I interviewed during the day with the fire department and then interviewed at night for the church. And after that interview process, over 3 days, the church offered us the job, my wife and I, the job right away, and loved what we were talking about and what we could do to build their program there. And then that Friday after we got back, I had a voicemail from the fire chief in Bernalillo County offering us the job with the fire department. So that was quite an amazing trip. And obviously God had called us out here to Albuquerque, and that's what brought us out here in 2003. Flash forward a few years in 2000, I believe it was 2012, in arena football, sports has been a big part of my life. What took me to college, I got to play football and baseball on a scholarship in Kansas at an NAIA school there, where I met my wife for the first day. We fell in love right away, got married that next summer, and then I joined the military after that to take care of my family. But when we came out here to New Mexico, there was an arena football franchise starting up in Rio Rancho, which is just a community in the outskirts of Albuquerque. And so they had an open tryout. I went to the open tryout, did very well. They offered me a contract to play with them for a couple of seasons, and so I took advantage of playing football with them. A few years later, so I got to be on the camp squad for 3 seasons and come in and practice throughout the year. And the 4th season of that franchise, they hired a new head coach from Oklahoma. And so I went out for the tryout again, tried to get a spot on the roster, and wouldn't sign me. And come to find out, the reason he wouldn't sign me is his words. What do we need a 100-year-old quarterback for? We're going to actually bring in some athletes to win some games here. And so ended up not getting signed to a contract, but he brought me on staff with him. And so we became very, very close. After that season, we coached together. I got to be, part of the coaching staff. I coached the quarterbacks, which is the position that I got to play, and then did a few games as the offensive coordinator. And we built a very tight relationship. We took that team to a championship. And unfortunately, when you say you've been to a championship, it's because you haven't won it. You didn't win it that year. So the next season, we became very close. The next season, we started with the franchise again. I was hired on as the general manager. Ownership was in a disarray, new ownership coming in. Minor league sports is a very tough business, as you can imagine. And so the ownership is really the crux of it. Having good ownership is a key to it, really. It didn't work out. And so we set out to start our own franchise and do it right in Albuquerque. And that's when we started the Duke City Gladiators, which is the nickname for the city of Albuquerque, the Duke City. And so we started the Duke City Gladiators. We called them the Gladiators because we were playing in the Coliseum, Tingley Coliseum. And so we thought it fitting that the Gladiators would be playing in the Coliseum. Out of that relationship and out of that program, we built a championship program. Took us 4 seasons, and we used a system that we called the red, green, blue, the 3 colors. And this is an accountability, a leadership system, leadership program. We developed 8 rules that go along with the program. And so we had, with that system and with that program, we built great culture. We brought in the right coaches, the right people from all over the country, and we built a world championship, won 2 championships with that organization. And so that's really how, while I was working with the fire department, I ran a construction company. I was doing full-time ministry. My wife and I were married and raising 3 amazing, talented young ladies, and also working for the fire department full-time. And so, doing all of those things together, we built the Gladiators into what they were and had some amazing success. We were very, very blessed with it. So that's really how it all came about.
Okay. So walk me through the red, green, blue program, because as you were describing it, I was taking your class and you're kind of going through things, it's so, for lack of a better way to put this, simple. In other words, it's a simple system. It's based on some core tenets that we all kind of believe in, but what I think I took from it most was it helped you be intentional about taking accountability, not only for yourself, but for other, holding people accountable and also having that accountability internally. So walk us through that.
No, you hit it on the head. The benefit and the greatest thing about this program is its simplicity, and the reason that's such a benefit is because it can be taught to anybody. You can use this in any organization. You can use it in your own life. You can use it in any business. It speaks perfectly to anyone because it's so simple to do it. And what we did with the Gladiators is when we were bringing in players, we would color code our players every week. We would color code them as 3 colors: reds, greens, and blues. The reds were players that were negative, that had issues, problems, that didn't buy into the culture, didn't buy into the system, that negative attributes of it. They were very selfish, self-interested, weren't playing for the team, wouldn't work hard, had some type of a problem or an issue. They're negative, they're lazy, they're dishonest. These are the complainers. They complain about the situation. They complain about management. They don't have great work ethics. You got to try to convince them, talk them into watching film, what they're doing here. They leave a mess around. Think of that as a fireman in your organization.
In my mind, I'm actually thinking about, are we talking about the sports industry? Or are we talking about a firehouse?
Because you're dealing with people, right? So we would color code our players. We would know these are guys that don't take responsibility. They make messes. They're not fun to be around. They're complaining about management. Like everything's negative. That's a red. Then the greens were the guys that are the middle of the road guys. These are guys that are inconsistent. Some days they're good, some days they're bad. They don't quite buy in. They follow the majority because they're influential. If you put them around a bunch of reds, they're going to immediately go to the reds and start acting just like the reds do, start complaining. They ride the fence. They don't have a backbone. They're not committed to the program, the system, and themselves, frankly. The blues are the elites. These are the guys that are hard workers. These are the 10% of the organization that's doing 90% of the work. They follow the rules. They train themselves. They're addicted to training. They're infatuated with training and getting better. They take responsibility for themselves. They're hardworking. They got great character. They got great attitudes. And they're the people that you want to be around. They don't make excuses for themselves. They take responsibility. They take extreme ownership of their situation and everything that's going on in their life. And they're obsessed with getting better. And so we would color code our players, how many greens we got, how many reds we got, how many greens we got, how many blues we got. Because the goal of the system is not just to categorize people. Yeah, you want to categorize because you want to know what you're working with and what you need to do to get them to change colors. This is a leadership system because it's how do I get the reds to buy in more, be more consistent, and at least move to a green and be green so that I can influence them with my blues. So we want to get the reds to at least change color to be green, and the greens to change color, be more consistent, to be blues and be leaders and to buy into the system. And then the blues just not to mess them up, just to keep fanning the flame and keep them doing what they're doing and doing it well. Because we knew that the teams that were going to be raising trophies over their heads or popping champagne in the locker room at the end of the season were the ones that would buy into this, the ones that had more blues than they had greens or reds, and limit the number of reds we have. But the goal is to change colors. Can you influence? Do you have the skill set as a coach? Do you have the leadership ability to recognize what you're working with and then get guys to change colors? Can you get them to move to from red to green and from green to blue, and the blues just to keep them doing what's right and the right thing? And then you apply this system to yourself. So we wear these bands. I wear this band every morning. I put this band on, take it off of my dresser. I put it on in the morning and I tug on the blue part and I tell myself, because I can be in the truth of this, you could be any one of those colors any day of the week throughout the day. And so you practice blue behavior. We talk about the importance of resilience in this life and going through difficulties in this life, and that it takes hot fire to make fine steel. You got to go through the process of difficulties because life is hard. Life is difficult. Life is not black and white. Life is red, green, and blue. You're going to encounter red situations in this life. And who encounters red situations more than first responders, police officers, firefighters, the military? So this speaks to every one of us that are in the service industry, because we know that we encounter red situations that are very difficult and have the potential of killing you or killing others or hurting people. Green situations where just, sunshine and roses and, everything's fine, no problem. And then you've got blue situations where you're winning and everything's going well and everything's going great. You're getting the promotions, the bank account's just fine. But we know that we're going to encounter any one of those situations. So we have to practice one of those colors. We have to practice this type of, we have to practice blue behavior. That's what we call resiliency. You practice blue behavior over and over and over again. You discipline yourself. You do the right thing when you're supposed to do it. You don't do the wrong things when you're not supposed to do them. That we call that self-discipline and discipline. And you discipline your mind. You practice blue behavior so that when you encounter red situations, that you act blue in those red situations. And that's the simplicity of the system.
So I wrote down a lot of things. There's a lot to unpack there. And where I want to start is I think what I appreciate the most about what you're saying is not that, and you mentioned this before, not that you're ranking anybody. It's dynamic. Like us, you and I, we can be, absolutely, as you put it, we can be in our blue phase. We can have a blue day, but we can have one of those bad days too. And leaders all across the country, we're in the same boat. We can have bad days. We can have really good leaders who just happen to have a bad day or caught in a bad life situation or whatever. So I love that there's that dynamic nature. In other words, there's movement across those colors.
And ultimately, it's about us. This is a reflection for me. I wear the band on my wrist because I know I can act any one of those colors. I know I'm going to encounter any one of those situations. So I just quickly remind myself, okay, what am I? Am I a red, a green, or a blue? I have to decide that. And when I sit down with companies, when I was a company officer, I'd sit at the table with guys and we'd lay it out for the year. And we'd go over the 8 rules. We'd go over the color system, very simple, presented in a few minutes, and say, okay, you guys choose. What type of team do you want to have? Do you want to have a red team, a green team, or a blue team? What type of person do you want to be on this team? What kind of a firefighter you are? Are you a red firefighter? Are you a green firefighter or a blue firefighter? And if you look at the logos on the team, my daughter came up with this actually. What's the worst hydrant you can pull up to? It's a red. What's the middle of the road hydrant you can pull up to? It's a green. And the best hydrants out there is a blue. So when you pull up as a truck company or a pumper and you want to fight a fire, you're going into a red situation. What plug do you want out in front of the road? You want to have you're hoping you have a blue plug out there. You hoping you have blues on your team, blue firefighters, a blue pump apparatus operating, and a blue officer that's doing the blue things in red situations. But ultimately, like you said, Chief, this is about my reflecting on me. Yeah, I'm going to color code my guys because I want to try to lead them into being blues. I want to find out what they are and what I need to do to influence reds to be greens to be blues.
And that was the second thing I was going to say. The intent is not just to rate somebody as a color, it's to get them better, it's to get them ranking up, is to take them from one place and take them to another. Just like when we're presenting, our goal as a presenter is to take one person from listening to us and then transition them to where we want them to see or where we want them to change or whatever. Same thing here. Your goal is to get them where they need to be. And that's powerful too, man.
100%. And that's leadership, right? Leadership can be summed up in one word: influence. Can you influence guys? And you're going to influence them one way or the other. You're going to take this culture and you're going to build this culture out. And if you act green, you're going to go with whatever the group's doing. Hopefully you're surrounded by blues. Or if you're surrounded by reds or you got reds, we know how powerful that bad piece of fruit is. You set a bad piece of fruit next to a really good fruit. What happens to the rest of the fruit? It starts molding and decaying along with that decaying piece of fruit. And so your responsibility as a leader is, hey, can I influence guys and gals to be their best version of, not be me. I don't need you to be me. We don't need more of me. We need the best version of you. I want the best version of Stephen Shaw working in this organization. And how do I influence Chief Shaw to be a blue every single day, regardless of the situations and what's going on around him? And that comes with resiliency is practicing disciplined behavior. Resiliency is practicing blue behavior so that when whatever situation occurs, you start acting, you act your color, you reflect your character and who you are.
Yeah, I love. There's so much. Like I said, there's so much. It's simple, but it's, well, I don't want to say it's simple. It's not easy, but the idea is simple. It's basic. It's simple, but it's so practical. I love that we're talking about this because it opens up doors for so many different paths, and that's it's a good start to the conversation. But you mentioned the 8 I guess rules or laws that you kind of mentioned there. Sure. What do those look like?
So you teach the system first so that we can, because we're always going to go back to it. And when guys buy into the culture, in my experience in professional football, in ministry, because you can apply this to ministry, you can apply this to your faith. I was very blessed to meet the chaplain of the Baltimore Ravens, and he uses a 3-chair system, but it's essentially the same thing. It's very simple to teach. You're either a red, a green, or a blue. And so in whatever your culture is, whatever organization you're in, whether it's the fire service, we know it works great in the fire service because we know we have people that are listening to this right now. They know you can identify who your reds are. You know exactly how many reds you got around you. What you're dealing with. You can identify the greens and you can identify the blues. How about you point this at yourself as well? Do you think back in your life where you acted? Do you remember times when you acted red in your life? Sure, I know times in my life when I acted red. I know an area in my life where everything I did was red. And I know times you think back in your life, times you acted green. Sure, I remember times in my life when I acted green, and I remember times in my life when I acted blue. And so this is really about us focusing on ourselves. How do you hold yourself accountable, and then lead those around you? So in addition to teaching the culture, this is the secret sauce. Everybody can apply this. I love the fact that you allow me to share it here with all of those all of our members in the fire service. You want to start a revolution in the fire service? Here it is. You start holding each other accountable, yourself accountable. And as a blue, what is a blue behavior? They hold everybody around them accountable because they're leaders. They're holding themselves accountable first, but holding those around them accountable. And they're doing the right things when they're supposed to do that. We call that discipline and self-discipline. So we're building resiliency in making these decisions over and over again. So in addition to the secret sauce, the red, green, blue color system of accountability and excellence, we teach 8 rules. Rule number 1 is always protect the team. The team is the most important thing. So every decision that I make the night before I come into work, the decisions I make while I'm not at work, the decisions I make while I'm at work need to be from this lens that rule number 1 is, how do I protect the team? If I'm out making a fool of myself, or I'm making bad decisions, or I make terrible decisions the night before I come into work, what kind of a player am I going to be? What kind of a teammate am I going to be the next day? When we would recruit players with the Gladiators, the first question we would ask them when we're building out our roster, obviously you're looking for great talent because you're trying to play a football game, but more than that, we would recruit from some of the best schools in the country, SEC schools, people from all over the country that did great and aren't playing in the NFL for whatever reason. And so we would get access to some great players all over the country. But the first question we would always ask them is, can you be a good teammate? What does it mean to you to be a good teammate? Because if you couldn't be a good teammate, or you didn't understand the importance of being a good teammate and what your part was a part of the team, then you couldn't be in our culture. Didn't matter what color you are, we couldn't reason with you and get you to be a part of this culture and buy into this culture. And so rule number 1 is about, hey, how can I be the best teammate for my team? Because the most important thing in this organization, in any great company, any great firehouse, any great organization, is that we're building this for something bigger than ourselves. And how lucky are we, Chief, that we get to be a part of a system and a culture and an industry that is all about sacrifice. It's all about this, what we're building and doing for other people, this self-sacrifice that we get to do. When you go to the National Fire Academy, what lines the whole walkway from going from the dorms into the classrooms where you're going to get better and learn and go grab some meals and break bread with your brothers and your sisters in the fire service? All along those paths are names written and inscribed in all those names that reflect all of these people that buy into this, to buy into the fire service at the highest level possible, is that they gave their life to this culture. They gave their life to this calling. There's nothing greater than that. And that's why I admire what you do, what other people do in the fire service, what I get to do in the fire service, because that's what this is about. How can you not buy into it? You see what Brett Tarver gave his organization and his community. He gave his life for it, the family sacrifice for that. And that's a reflection of this great industry that we get to be a part of. So that's what this is about. This is about the team. This is about the guys you get to go work with every single day. And I ask my guys, I get to work with all types of different people. I get to work with a lot of people that have families. I get to work with guys that have children at home. And so for someone, it's easy for you and I, if I were to ask you, would you be willing to give your life for me or for your brother that you work with? Without hesitation, you'd raise your hand. Yeah, I'd stand in front of a bullet for my brother. I'd go into a burning building. I'd go try to save a life that I don't even know in my community, because we that's who we are. That's the nature of what we do. And we raised our hand to swear an oath to that fact. Well, guys and gals that are in this industry that have husbands and wives at home or children at home puts in a different perspective, doesn't it? Because a guy that says, I would be willing to give my life for you, I've got 3 girls at home, I'd be willing to give my life for you, means I'd be willing to kill the father of my children in order to make a difference in this world. And that puts it into a different perspective for me about what this team is. That's all I need to know, is I have people sitting at the table with me doing this that would be willing to kill the father or the mother of their children in order to save my life, or an opportunity to save my life or another life. That tells you exactly who we are. How can you not give your very best every single day? How can you not get better at this? How can you not train? How can you not be the best version of yourself when you're surrounded with people like that? How can the team not be the most important thing? So all the decisions that I make are about, am I putting my team at risk? Because if I'm not at work, if I go get a DUI or I make some dumb decision that pulls me out of the game, my team, I know my team's going to suffer without me, because I'm blue. And so I have to be there. Me being there is how I protect the team. Not covering up problems and issues. That doesn't protect the team. Being accountable, holding myself accountable. Hey, who did this wrong? I did that wrong. Yeah, I'm taking accountability. I'm taking ownership. I'm taking extreme ownership of this, as Jocko would say. And so that's how I protect my team. Rule number one, always protect the team by being the greatest teammate, being the best version of yourself you can possibly be. I don't know how much time you got here on this podcast.
Well, we're doing pretty good. We're halfway. I usually try to get this to somewhere around an hour or so, give or take. But you're doing well. I keep going with these.
Rule number two is no whining, no complaining, and no excuses. And that comes from one of the greatest things I learned from, I've been very blessed to meet great people in my life, including you, Steve, Carter, and a number of other amazing people I got to meet. In pro football, you get to meet some great people too. Our head coach, Dominic, his best friend in life is the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. And I've had on many occasions an opportunity to meet John. I got to meet his dad and spend a whole weekend with his dad, Jack, who is really the superstar of that family. Jack is an amazing head coach, and you get to see him around his boys, Jim and John. They bring him in all the time. He's constantly watching film and being ready in case they call him up to go coach with him. But Jack's an amazing, amazing speaker, amazing guy. When I was around John, one of the times I got to be around John, he had told me some great things. But one of the biggest things I learned from Jack and from John and the Harbaugh family is an attitude of gratitude. And they have a mantra within their family: who's got it better than us? Jim applied this culture and built the culture around who's got it better than us. Nobody, with the Michigan football team, the college team, and won a national championship with it. And he takes it on with him. And John does the same thing with his guys. I've seen many times at many practices with the Ravens in Owens Mills at the Under Armour Performance Center where he brought this up. And this speaks so – I had latched onto this. I took this immediately and added it to what we're doing. Rule number two is no whining, no complaining, no excuses. Stop making excuses. Take responsibility. Stop complaining about everything, and stop whining about everything. Who's got it better than us in the fire service? You think about it. We get to do a job that we absolutely love. We signed up for this. We raised our hand for this. We get to go out and do this. And everybody had filled. When you first start out in the fire service, you know how hard you're working to try to get into this, break into this career. I know I did. And you put in everything to get a part of this culture because you want to be a part of this team. You want to be a part of this culture. You want to serve. And so we're very blessed. You ask any fireman, are you blessed to do this? Every one of them is going to say, no, I love doing this. I want to do this. I get to do a job. And we get how many chances at life, Chief? How many chances you get at life? You get one chance. You get one life to live. And can you imagine anything more tragic in this life than spending your one life, 40, 50, 60 years of your one life doing a job that you hate, that you can't stand? I know when I drive into work, I'm past thousands of cars filled with people all going to a job that they hate, that they can't stand because they have to do it. Well, we're not in that boat. I think any fireman would tell you how lucky they are to be able to do this career, or at one point in their life, they felt pretty darn lucky to do this, to be able to get paid. We just retired from the fire service after 20 years with our department. And so now we get a pension for the rest of our lives. I mean, we are so blessed in so many ways. How could you not have an attitude of gratitude? How could you waste? Because this is limited. We look back on 20 years of career and it went by like that. And I remember when I first started in the fire service thinking, man, I'm never going to be, with my captain, look how old he is and how gray his hair is and how chubby his waist is. Like, I'm never going to be that guy. I'm always going to be young and fit. And now look at me now. Here, you say the camera puts on 20 pounds. It actually puts on 20 years. If you can tell, don't adjust your screen. This is what my face normally looks like. But we've been so blessed to be a part of this. We're so blessed to be in the fire service. And how could we not have an attitude of gratitude? And so when I start classes, you saw when we were down at the First Care conference, we started out with what? An attitude of gratitude. Who's got it better than us? And so that mantra has stuck with me. I start every class, and in every class that I'm a part of, with who's got it better than us. Nobody's got it better than us. So have an attitude of gratitude. Appreciate. You started off this podcast with your moment of gratitude with the people that we get to do this with.
Always do.
How blessed are we? Who's got it better than us, Chief? Nobody. It's got it better than us. So that's rule number 2. No whining, no complaining, and stop making excuses. Rule number 3 is the 3 B's. Be ready, be early, and be disciplined. And I could speak a long time about the importance of being ready in the fire service, having your truck checked, having everything right where it's supposed to be, making sure all your equipment is there, and how important it is to be ready to go out on a call. we deal with sudden change. And when we were coaching with the Gladiators, we would teach this resiliency technique. We would teach guys to be blue and red. The most common red situation in football is sudden change. And what's an example of sudden change in a football game? Turnover, an interception, the ball gets turned over, and now the offense who is trying to score has to come off the field. And what are they feeling like and looking like? Well, they're defeated, they're upset, they're mad, they're angry. And then the defense on the other team is coming on the field, and they're elated, they're excited, they're pumped up. And so you have an offense defeated going off the field, defense coming, and the defense going off the field that's excited. Their offense is coming on the field. They're excited. They just took over the ball. They're ready to go. They couldn't be more happy because they had a sudden change in the game. And then the defense of our team is going on, and they're upset. Or if they go onto the field to defend against the offense who's elated and excited, they go onto the field defeated and upset. What do you think is going to happen to them? They're going to get railroaded. We call that momentum in a football game. And I don't need to convince you what the power of momentum in a football game is. Many games are lost or won because of momentum switches. And that's all about mindset. That's all about your attitude. And in the fire service, we deal with sudden change all the time. What's the most common sudden change we deal with in the fire service? A call. The tones drop. And now we got to go out. And how often do we allow our mindset to switch to a negative mindset, this complaining, because we're not ready for this change? And when we go out and serve the public and we're upset, another call, we got to go do this again. The frequent flyer again. Oh God, why can't this person just stop calling 911? And we have that attitude, or do we have the right mindset? We're ready. We've got there early. We got everything set up. We've got a mind that's full of discipline. We're doing the right thing. We're expecting the sudden change. We go out on the field. Defense goes out on the field. They're pumped up for their opportunity with defense, and they stop offense, even though they got a momentum switch. They stop them, and then the momentum switches right back the other way. So that type of mindset with rule number 3, be ready, be early, and be disciplined. It's an acronym, RED, ready, early, discipline. So how do you combat red behavior? You get yourself ready. How often have you been ready and things go the way, or have you done training in the station? We just did training on this tactic or this problem, and then you get that call later that day. Then now you're prepared for it, and how that call goes, because you are ready. You are out training. You've prepared your mind. You've prepared your mindset. You prepared your team for all these situations, so that when the situation comes, it's no big deal. We've practiced this. That's okay. We've practiced blue behavior. Doesn't matter how red this situation is. We're ready to go. So we combat red behavior by being ready and being early. How often have you been late to something, and how quickly do things unravel, get cut off, or there's traffic, all because you're running late? So when you're early, you're going to create all kinds of opportunities for you. Even if you were to forget something at home, hey, I'm 45 minutes early. I could run back and grab that thing and still be on time. No problem. And so you set yourself up for success. And then the goal for discipline is, we know how powerful discipline is. Jocko relates discipline to freedom. And when you're disciplined and doing the right thing, then you're going to have great freedom, and you could do all kinds of stuff. It's going to open up opportunities for you by being disciplined, the power of discipline. I'm a big fan of David Goggins, who is like the ultimate discipline guru, who does all the ultra training and everything else. When I went to smoke diver training, I read his book, Can't Hurt Me, which I would highly recommend if you have not read Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. Life-changing book. Also, Jocko Willink does a great job with leadership in extreme ownership. That's all about discipline and doing the right thing. I was listening to earlier today, Coach Saban talking about discipline, and he equates, and I wrote it down, equates discipline to doing what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way you're supposed to have it done. Discipline is doing what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way it's supposed to be done. Doing the right thing the right way all of the time. That's discipline. Self-discipline is about, can you make yourself do something that you don't want necessarily do because you're supposed to do it when you're supposed to do it? Do you clean your room, and do you do it thoroughly? Do you go to work on time? Are you ready for work the next day? Are you making the right decisions? Are you going to practice? Are you doing what your coaches? Are you doing what your parents telling you to do? Are you doing what the company officer is telling you? What management is telling you to do? Are you doing the right thing even though when you know you're supposed to do it? Or also, are you not doing the things that you're not supposed to? You know you're not supposed to do that. You know that's going to harm you. and are you telling yourself, or do you have self-discipline enough to say, I'm not supposed to be doing those things. I'm not supposed to be around that. I'm not going to go do that. That's self-discipline. And so we see the power of discipline and what we're supposed to do in the ready, early, discipline, the 3 B's. That's rule number 3.
So I'm gonna hold off here because I think there's a ton to cover here. And first of all, I think that there's in each one of these there's so much to talk about, and I'm going to try to keep it limited because I want to respect everybody's time. I want to respect your time. But I like that you started with the team aspect in terms of your first rule, because we love our teams in the fire service. Just like in sports, we love our teams. Whether we're in the fire academy together, that's a team we developed, and we'll never forget those people. Whether we're in a cohort when we first started the job, whether we're on a special ops team, a competition team, whatever. There's so many teams, and we love our teams. And I love that we are talking about protecting them. In other words, by you saying that, it's not about you, it's about the team. And that's powerful. It all goes back to protecting the team, protecting other people. It's not about me, it's about you. I want to protect you. I love that you started there. And I think you and I both have an interesting perspective on the idea of building talent right now. You going into a new organization starting soon, me going into this new organization for the past 6 months, and as we build this fire department, thinking about how do we do that? Not only how do we attract and build the team, but how do we attract the talent? And then when they're here, making sure we're applying that to building that team from the ground up. And I think a lot of it, and you mentioned this word a couple of times, which is one of my favorite words, is perspective. I think that, and I think I say it too much that people have, if they're doing a drinking game, they'd be drunk by now. But for me, that idea of perspective is huge. In other words, your second thing about whining, complaining, excuses. Well, hold on a second. Are you seeing things the right way? Let me just offer a couple ways for you to reframe or recalibrate so you see things a little bit differently. Was that call you went on a nuisance call, or was it an opportunity to meet a person you haven't met before, show the fire department in a good light, so on and so forth?
Well said.
And then when you talked about your third one, like the being ready, early, and disciplined, to me that just goes to training. And for me, for example, and I've said this a couple of times in a couple of shows, I'm a trainer by heart. And as we start this new fire department, the standard will be you're going to train every day.
There you go.
It's not an option. It's not like, maybe I'll train today. No. Every day is a training day. End of story. But that leads into making you ready and making you disciplined, making you prepared. So keep talking. I know there's a little bit of time left. You hit it on the head.
That's about it. Those 3 things are how we do this. That's why these are the rules. These are the highlights. This is what we're always going to lean back to is, are we protecting the team in every decision that we make? Are we setting ourselves up with an attitude of gratitude and to set the culture for the day and the mindset for the day? Who's got it better than us? Okay. Well, if we've got it better than everybody else, how can you not go after this day with it, as Jack would say, let's attack this day with an enthusiasm that is unknown to mankind. And when I talk to my girls as they're going out to school and they're going getting ready for their careers, I'll bring this up with them. Go attack this day with an enthusiasm that is unknown to mankind. And Jack would mention that all the time. And it's a phenomenal mindset because it'll set you up for the right call, so that when red stuff comes, it doesn't matter because you've got the right mindset. Or a nuisance call comes up, you look at it as an opportunity. And that brings us into rule number 4. Be a pro. This is the professional fire service. So this is the highest level of this organization. This is the highest level of this industry. You are in the professional level. You're not trying to get to the NFL. You are in the NFL of firefighting when you're working as a career firefighter or professional firefighter. Or if you're volunteer for a fire organization, you are the people that are coming when someone dials 911. When people dial 911, it doesn't matter to them who shows up other than a professional shows up that has a solution to whatever their problem is. And in the fire service, you got to be incredibly talented and skilled because you got to handle a myriad of different problems that we have to go, whether it's a hazmat call, a structure fire, an EMS call, a wreck, any of it. You got to be ready, disciplined, all of those things, and you got to act like a professional. With our players, with the Gladiators, we're playing in minor league sports, guys trying to get to the next level, this guys trying to get into the NFL. Well, we are in the NFL of firefighting. You are at the highest level of this as a professional firefighter. So you are now in it, and you need to start acting a certain way. Coach Harbaugh would tell you that it's different now that you're in the pros. You got to act a certain way. You got to dress a certain way. So guys that complain about how we got to put this uniform on, we got to wear this blouse or this other. No, you're at the highest level of this. This is what a professional does. You know what they do to NFL athletes when they show up at an NFL game and they're not wearing their uniform exactly the right way? Something's untucked or not, they don't have the right color of socks on. You do this in the professional sports world, you have to wear everything the right way, or you get fined thousands and thousands of dollars if you're not dressed a certain way. And so I tell my guys in the firehouse when I was a company officer, and even with my company officers as a battalion chief, is, hey, you're going to wear a uniform of a professional. When we go to the grocery store and we're walking down the aisles picking things out of the grocery stores, I want mom who's there shopping, or dad who's there shopping, or anyone there shopping, to look down that aisle and say, that's what a professional firefighter looks like. They act a certain way. They hold themselves a certain way. They dress a certain way, and we want them, when they see you, that's what I want them to say, is that's what a professional looks like. A person who holds himself in a different light, because on your uniforms are two different names. On your uniform is the name of the community and the organization that you represent. But what else is on your uniform? In the form of a name tag, your name, your family heritage, who you represent, the people at home, and your lineage is in representation of how you act when you're out in the public. And so being a professional is about doing all the things right, being disciplined, being early, being ready, being trained up, but it's also a reflection of who you are, which is your brand. Whatever you do is your brand. When you come into work late, that's your brand. How you come into work, the attitude you carry with you when you're at work, how you conduct yourself at work, how you train or lack thereof, how you develop yourself is all a reflection of who you are, is a reflection of your brand. So is your brand something worth investing in? You got companies out there who invest millions and millions of dollars into athletes because they want to associate that athlete. They want to associate Michael Jordan with their brand. And they want to know, is this guy's brand or gal's brand worth investing in? Do I want to associate my organization, my company, with this person? As a fire department, as a chief officer, I'm asking the same questions. When I'm hiring a firefighter, I'm asking, do I want to associate this company's brand, my brand, all the people around him, this team's brand, with that person's brand? Is their brand worth investing in? And do you think that Nike made a good decision when they invested their brand with Michael Jordan? Heck yeah, they did. They made an amazing decision that changed that company forever. And so you think about how you being a professional is all about what your brand looks like. We wouldn't call our arena football players. We called them professional football players. When we were out in the public practicing and in the arena practicing, we would practice with this mindset. When people come by or they come to the stadium or they come watch you, I want them to see this is what a professional team looks like. This is what a professional athlete looks like. This is how a professional conducts themselves. This is about your brand. It is your brand worth investing in. So with you at home, you need to ask that question. Is my brand worth investing in for the city, for the community, for the people around me as a company officer? So that's rule number 4. Be a pro. You are at the highest level of this industry. You are in the NFL of firefighting. You are at the highest level of this. And you have to dress a certain way. You have to act a certain way because it's your brand that's on display for everybody to see. So that's rule number 4. Rule number 5 is all about being positive. Rule number 5 is about being respectful. Rule number 5 is about your character on display, also going back to your brand. So rule number 5 is be respectful, be positive. And we all know the power of positivity in culture and how it affects it, because we know the power of negativity and how infectious negativity can be in the culture. I believe I'm a big fan of John Gordon, who has written several bestsellers on this subject. And I just recently got certified as a John Gordon certified coach that teaches the power of positive leadership, the power of a positive team, and then the energy bus, which I would encourage you guys to read. It's a 2-hour, you can read it in 2 hours. You can listen it to an Audible. Another great book to get is The Energy Bus. It's about the power of positivity and the influence positivity will have in your life. Positivity, John will tell you, positivity is a competitive advantage in this life, especially in the fire service. You've been around negative people before, and you know how unfortunate that is, or how terrible that is to be around people that are negative all the time. You've been around positive people, and you see how infectious and great being around positive people and having this attitude of gratitude, how important that is, and this proper perspective. In a world that's so filled with pessimism and negativity, and you're bombarded with it with social media all the time, you have got to be positive in this, because it is a competitive advantage in this life. Being optimistic is a competitive advantage as a leader, and and you're setting the vision as a leader. You're setting a vision in the organization. I know the culture that you guys are building out at Jupiter, and I know it's an optimistic one and it's a positive one, and you speak that over and over and over again. And the importance of rule number 5 is we need to be a positive leader. We need to set a positive culture. We need to be optimistic about the future, because the future is bright. If you do and think these things right, we're so lucky to be here. Who's got it better than us? We've got a great future ahead of us. Let's go get better, which is rule number 6. Get better every day. The goal is to get 10% better today than we were yesterday, or 1%, just 1%. You get 1% better today than you were yesterday. And then the next goal is to get 1% better tomorrow than you are today. 1% better today than you were yesterday, 1% better tomorrow than you are today. You do that for 30 days and you're going to be a completely different. If you could sit down and say, I'm going to be 30% better than I am today in 30 days, that would be a completely different person in just 30 days by having this growth mindset and how important it is to get better. We talk about the importance of training. We talk about the importance. There's 4 pillars to leadership. There's 4 pillars to professional development in the fire service. The first pillar is certification and training, and how important that is to get credentials and certification and going to training classes, going to the NFA, going to FRI, going to FDIC, how important that is, because you're getting yourself certified and trained up. The second pillar to professional development is your formal education. You've also got to get better at being educated. You got to be, because a degree is going to open up doors of opportunity for you. So you need to go be chasing down degrees, because that's just going to open up opportunities for you. And also the importance of you getting a degree is, if Chief Shaw's got a degree, what does that say to his kids? If dad's got a degree or mom's got a degree, what does that say to your children and the people that you're leaving your legacy for? It says, if my kids know that dad's got a degree or got a master's degree or a doctoral degree, that means that my kids can get those types of degrees. And if my kids will get those degrees, that's going to change their life forever. Because it's going to open up doors of opportunity, regardless of whatever the degree is. How many people are working in careers that have nothing to do with their degrees? It's just about you going and starting. In fact, when we built the first championship team, every one of our players had a degree. They were a college graduate. And that was an important requirement for us when we were building that team that year. We wanted everybody to be a great teammate, number one, but we wanted you to have your degree. We wanted to know that you started something and you finished it. That's the mindset of a champion. This get better every single day, and how important it is for us to have a growth mindset and to move forward in our progression. So the second, I think, the professional development tree is certification and training, formal education. The third one is experience. You got to do this. You need to build resiliency. You got to go through the fire. It takes hot fire to make the finest of steel. And so you got to go through that process. You need experience in it. And the fourth leg of professional development is a separate skill in of itself, that there is methodology to it, there's styles to it, there's skills to it, and that's leadership. And you need to develop your leadership skill in and of itself, separate from all the other things, and develop yourself out as a great leader. It takes practice, takes reps, it takes styles, it takes philosophies, it takes all of that stuff. And so that all ties into us getting better every single day, understanding where we want to go and understanding your future and having an optimistic approach to it is about how we get better. and then taking responsibility for that. It's upon me to be a blue every single day and build blue culture every single day and to get better every single day. That's rule number 6. Rule number 7 is the Pygmalion philosophy. And this is the idea, I had learned this from Jimmy Johnson, that everything that comes out of your mouth needs to be in a positive form. He would never tell his players, hey, don't go lose the football. He would tell them, go protect the football. He would call them national champions before they were ever national champions. And the Pygmalion effect is all about the self-fulfilling prophecy, about speaking truth into people. And if you were to speak negative, if I were to tell my kids every day when they got home from school or before they went out to their day, you're a liar, you're a cheat. I called my kids a liar or a cheat or a thief. What do you think they'd become if they heard that over and over again? Or if I told them, you're not any good at math, you're terrible at math. And if I spoke that into them over and over again, what do you think they would become? They would become a liar. They'd become a cheat. They would become whatever I spoke into their life, because that's how powerful our words are. And if I did the opposite and I spoke positivity and I told them, go attack this day like with an enthusiasm that is unknown to mankind, and I told them, you're going to be great and you're going to be a superstar from Rent-A-Car, you're going to be a rock star, you're going to go do great things, what do you think that's going to set them up to be? The Pygmalion philosophy is the same story as the story of Pinocchio. Geppetto loved his creation so much. What happened to it? He loved this. He created a little wooden boy puppet, and he loved it so much every single day. What happened to Pinocchio? He came to life. He became a real boy. And that's the power of the Pygmalion philosophy, that you speak into people and this self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I would tell my guys, every crew that I got to work with, company officer I got to work with, you are going to be a great firefighter, and here's how we're going to do it. I got an idea of what the greatest firefighter looks like. I have a vision for the greatest firefighter and what that looks like, and we're going to chip away everything that doesn't bring us to that vision or fulfill that prophecy about it. And so every day we're going to train, every day we're going to get better. We're going to follow the rules. We're going to protect the team. We're not going to whine and complain. We're going to be ready. We're going to be early. We're going to be disciplined. We're going to sell our brand, which is going to be a professional brand at the highest level of this. We're going to be positive. We're going to be respectful to the people around us. We're going to get better every single day, and we're going to be positive about it. We're going to speak this out into our guys every single day. That's rule number 7. The Pygmalion philosophy. I would encourage you to go out and look it up. It's a vast process based on some research that and some experiments that were done to prove its existence. And then rule number 8, very simple. What color are you? What color are you, Chief? Are you a red, or are you a green, or are you a blue? And you get to choose that. You have to decide every single day. And I've got to reflect on that. What color am I going to be today? Because I can go have a red day if I wanted. But what is me having a red day going to do for everybody around me? The greatest thing you can do as a company officer is be consistent. You want to be a great company officer? Have great plans, apply the philosophy, apply the system to your life, follow the 8 rules, and do that every single day and be consistent about it. And you're going to change. I promise you, you're going to change the culture within yourself. Because you buy into this, it's not just going to change your firehouse. It's not just going to change your crew. If you buy into this, about being a blue, if you buy into the 8 rules, this is going to change your life forever. And I can say that with confidence because I know it did it for me. It changed my life forever when I bought into this system. And I knew I had to be, this is what I was going to be about. I was going to be a blue every single day. So you buy into this, you're not just going to be a great fireman or a great officer. You're going to be a great father. You're going to be a great husband. You're going to be a great mother. You're going to be a great spouse or a great partner. You're going to be a great everything if you will buy into the system. And that's what's so powerful about it.
So yeah, there's a lot to break down there. But each one of these is, and as you're listing each one of these, I'm thinking about the firehouse. I'm thinking about in fire admin. I'm thinking everything we do on a regular basis. And it's so, generic's not the right word. It's applicable across so many spectrums, so many disciplines, so many jobs, so many careers, home, family, the professional side. There's a lot of applicability here. I'm thinking about a lot of things, like going through the ones you just mentioned before in terms of like the positivity. I'm a big reader, just like you are. We read a lot, and a lot of these things are remembering. They're pointing me in directions of books that I read and just reinforcing them. Like you mentioned, the 1%, going to James Clear's book. You mentioned the Pygmalion, and I'm going to things that my wife, who's a psychologist, had mentioned to me before. So there's so many different things that I'm thinking of right now. And I also recognize the challenges. Let's be real here in terms of, okay, we have to be positive. We have to be respectful, no whining, no complaining. It's so easy to get caught in those traps. We know a lot of guys and a lot of people that run those busy trucks, those busy rescue trucks, those busy engines. And it's so hard to maintain that level of positivity when you're getting beat up, whether it's administratively, whether it's operationally. It's just hard sometimes. And to be in a position to where you're positively influence people to keep their motivation, to keep their perspective. We need those people in the fire service. There's so many things hitting us today that haven't been there when we first started that we have to contend with, that we have to balance. So it's difficult. I do love the fact that you're going back to assessing yourself. And I think that's one of those powerful parts of this conversation is that, yes, you're assessing yourself, but it's a self-check. You're holding yourself accountable, but for the purpose of making your team better, for the purpose of them, for the purpose of the people on your team. That's powerful, man. So, and I love that you have a system here. I think that, in terms of the steps you're in your head, you know what you're talking about, you're knowing how to self-assess, and then applying those to the people in the team. So thank you for going through all these, man. I think that like each one of these, if we just took each one of these, we could probably talk another hour on each one of those concepts.
You sure
right?
could. You sure could.
But I want to ask you a couple more questions now that we kind of dived into this. And we're around an hour or so at that. So like I said, I want to respect your time and the listeners' time. But one of my favorite questions, as we talked about all these things and whatnot, what are your concerns in the fire service these days? I mean, both you and I are transitioning to a different position. I've started a new department. You're going to be going somewhere pretty soon. So our mindsets are different. We have this experience that we've had in the past, and we're going to another area in life, another job. So for you, do you have any concerns in the fire service? In other words, to put it simply, does anything keep you up at night these days?
I think that it's our opportunity and leaving opportunities on the table. And as leaders, I think the Achilles heel for the fire service in general is leadership development. Are we building the right leaders and preparing the right leaders? I talk to chief officers all the time about, hey, let's put together a conference. We'll bring you in, have you teach red, green, blue and the system and the 8 rules to our guys, because we want to empower our officers with some form of a system. You talk about how difficult it is in the fires because we're dealing with negativity and problems and the world is in a tough place right now. And so, nationally and internationally. And so being able to develop up the next set of leaders and firefighters and to build resiliency for them so they can go through these red situations they're going to deal with and making sure they have the tools. And so that's the importance of us having some form of a system. And the power of it being so simple is that now you know what it is, you can apply it to your life, you can be ready for those situations. So because what's going to sustain you in the storm is not, going to the book and start reading through all I need to do this and apply this and the SOG and the manuals. No, do you have a system in place that you have been bought into that defines who you are, these value systems that you're going to go back to. So when it gets difficult and the storm does come, that you go back to back with your teammate, you go back to back with your spouse, and you don't point the finger at each other and you don't cast blame on each other. But the marriages are the marriages that last are the ones where you can go back to back in the storms and the trials and the difficulties. And you're in this together. You're fighting this battle because this is your team. Or a team that's going to stay together and be victorious in the end are the ones that buy into each other. And so, having this system and being it simple is that you can apply it to anything in this life. And so that making sure that our guys and gals have a culture, have the values, that we're expressing this to them and understand that the opportunity they have in building them up and being resilient so that when they go through difficulties, it'll sustain them. So having the culture, I can lean back on it. I don't have to think. I don't have to react. I don't have to think about it. I can just react when the situation comes. And I just need to be reminded of what color am I? And I've already practiced that behavior. So when I have a difficulty, I can go through it. And you apply it to every team. So you as a chief officer, how are you building out your executive staff? Well, I want to build out guys that are filled. I want an executive staff that's filled with blues so that when they're out there and they're doing their thing and they're leading their guys or they're doing training, I want to fill them with a bunch of blue chief officers. I want to have a bunch of blue company officers. So that when we're out doing training or guys are running calls, I don't have to worry about them. I know those are blues and they're going to do the right thing no matter what. Because we've taught them that, we've given them the skill set, we've given them the rules, they can apply it to their life, and they've practiced it. They become really very resilient with it. so that when the difficulties come, they can overcome it. That's my calling. I mean, I want to share this with everybody in the fire service, because I know how simple it is and what it did for me in my life, how it changed my life, and being committed to this and what it's done for me. And so what a great opportunity for us to be able to go out and share this and give the system away and give it to people. They can make it their own and build themselves and their organization and make it better by this accountability system.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the whole purpose of this. The fact that we're doing this, the fact that we're talking to experienced fire rescue service individuals, just sharing the knowledge, sharing this information for everybody out there to take and learn from and to glean something from. That's what we're trying to do, is make the team out there better, just like we've been talking about the entire time.
And knowledge is a gift, right? Every one of us have been given knowledge. Someone poured into us. Some people invested in us. My father invested in me. The coaches in my life invested in me. The coaches I have in my life now, they're investing me and giving me knowledge all the time. And if we believe knowledge is a gift, well, what should we do with knowledge then if it's a gift? What do you do with a gift? You give it away. Yep. And that's what the whole purpose of this is.
Love it. So I want to just reflect on some things here. First of all, I took a lot of notes, and if you can see this, I took just a few notes.
I love it.
But I just, as we're coming close to the end of this, I want to just reflect on a couple of things. I think the ultimate theme of today was definitely accountability. In other words, we're talking about self-accountability, holding others accountable, but for the betterment of them, a betterment of the team. I think that was a powerful overriding theme throughout this entire conversation. We mentioned the difference of what you termed like the red, green, and blue attitudes or personalities, or the way they were at the time, and the fact that it's dynamic. And the fact that the goal here is not just to identify somebody, but to help them get better, taking them from what you termed a red into a blue or a green, and then from a green to a blue. And that's powerful. In other words, you're not identified as that. It is a temporary thing. Where can we get you to? I think that right there, as we're ending this talk, is probably the most impactful. We have tons of people we work with that for whatever reason, they find themselves in that negative space, in the area where they can get better. How do we as leaders get them there? That's the powerful thing that I'm taking away from this conversation. And then we went through those steps you mentioned, everything from protecting the team, the absence of whining, complaining, excuses, that we talked about training, being ready, early, disciplined, being a professional, being positive and respectful, which is huge, getting better every day. And that's a powerful one. I think about that in my office almost every day. In other words, when I leave here today, have I gotten better? Have I made the team better? Have I made this place better every single day? The Pygmalion philosophy, and then, it's self-identifying. How do I feel today? In your terms, am I a blue? Am I a green? Am I a red? Where am I today? And if, can I get better? Am I in the space to make change? This has been a good conversation, and I think there's a lot of nuggets here that speak to a lot of people, especially in the fire service. And like you said before, it translates to so many disciplines, the ideas, So as we end up here, what's next for you, man? What's on your radar before we leave here?
Well, I've been very blessed in a career. I just retired from a couple of weeks ago from a great organization with great leaders and great people in it. And then I've been offered, like you, getting offered a position in another department to go build culture and to build it out is incredibly humbling. And I was offered that opportunity to go to Nebraska for the city of Grand Island and be the deputy fire chief there. I'll get to oversee operations and training, which is right up my alley. And my passions in the fire service speaks very well to my skill set. And so I'm very, very excited for the trust that has been given to me by Chief Schmidt, Corey Schmidt there, and all of the members of that organization. I'm very excited to be able to go be a part of what they've built, the culture they've built up to this point, and get to insert myself into their organization and to get better and build relationships with those guys there. I think my leadership philosophy is summed up in 3 words, and it guides everything that I do, everything that I am, the decisions that I make every day, that I get to be around the red, green, blue leadership program and go around the country and speak this to it. And, my leadership philosophy summed up those 3 words: I love you. And because I love you, I'm going to hold you accountable. Because I love you, we're going to be the best at this. I'm going to try to make you the best version of yourself. I need to be the best version of myself every single day. And that comes with accountability and all those things we talked about the rules and the system, and just reflecting every single day what I can do because of the 3 words. That's what guides us in all of this. Because I love you, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to make you better. I'm going to make myself better and this organization better. So here's the opportunity that's been given to me to go to Grand Island. And what can we do with that opportunity and make it great? I don't know that we can win there, but I'm going to sure give it my best effort possible every single day. And I pray for those guys because I'm coming, and we're going to do great things. And I'm coming every single day. You're going to get my best version and my best effort every single day. And it comes down to those 2 things that you have 100% control over. You only have control over a couple of things, your attitude and your effort. And so I'm going to come with the best effort. I'm going to come with my very best every single day. I'm going to come with a great attitude and be purposeful about my attitude, because that's what I control. And it starts with the 3 words. We're going to do great at this. We're going to fulfill our opportunities. We're going to see challenges as opportunities because of 3 words that guide us. I love you. And I'm honored to do this with you. So that's where we're going next. And then RGB Leadership is taking off. We have a website that you can go visit, rgbfirehouseleadership.com. I encourage you to go on there. You can read through some of our philosophy and our vision and our goals for that organization and what we're going to do across the country. I believe we're going to start a revolution in the fire service, and that revolution is going to be a groundswell. It's about accountability in each individual person in the firehouse, in whatever organization, in your leadership team, and wherever God has put you. So we're very blessed to go there. God is calling us up to Grand Island, and we're very excited about going up. We bought a house up there. We're moving. My wife and I are getting kicked out of the nest here, and our girls are going to stay and start their lives here. And so we're going to go up there to Nebraska, and I look forward to that opportunity. I'm very excited.
Well, I think that you and I will be talking a lot. I think we're going to have a lot of similar stories as you start your journey and I'm continuing mine. I think we have a lot to talk about going forward.
No doubt about it. I got a ton I can learn from you, Steve. You do it very well. Yeah, I know you don't like the accolades because it's just who you are. That's your character. But you do an amazing job in Jupiter. You're hiring some great talent out there, and I'm very excited for the future of Jupiter, what you guys are going to build. And I'm watching it very closely because I'm stealing everything I can from you guys. You're doing great things. I can get better from watching you. So I appreciate being on here with you. And what you're doing with the legacy for Bobby Halton, you're doing a great job. You're honoring his legacy and his purpose and what he's doing. So keep it up. I think you're doing an amazing job. Maybe you didn't bring on the greatest person to speak today, but you dropped the talent level a little bit. But I know you're going to make that up, and you're going to make it better going forward. So I wish you the best, my friend.
I appreciate you being here today. This has been a great conversation. So as we end up here, as I said, everybody who's listening out there, we think about, what do you do with this information we've talked about today? I encourage you to listen to the episode, reflect on some of the things we talked about today, especially things with accountability, and not only the accountability, but how do you practice that? Not only for yourself, but how do you hold others accountable? Not because you're trying to get them in trouble or you're being a pest, because like Matt says, you love them. You care about your team. You're holding them accountable because you care about them. So as we end this, once again, thank you for Fire Engineering. Thank you for Clarion for letting us have this opportunity. Thank you to my fire chief, Chief Donato, for allowing me to have this platform and to continue to give back to the fire service. And every second Friday of the month, we drop a new episode. So hoping to talk to you guys soon. We're coming close to the end of the year. So have a wonderful holiday out there. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And we'll see you in December. So thank you, Matt, for coming on board today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Everybody out there, stay safe. We'll see you soon. Take care.
For all your medication and narcotic tracking needs, check out the LogRX app, created by career fire and EMS professionals. That's LogRX.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Flex 7 from TenCate Protective Fabrics. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of enforced technology. Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatefabrics.com/Flex7.
In the world of firefighting and public safety, reliability is key. That's why for over 2 decades, first responders nationwide have trusted TheFireStore as their go-to source for essential equipment, apparel, and accessories. Visit thefirestore.com online or in-store